Welcome to the realm of magic and mystery, classic horror and sci-fi. You are now entering the House of the Unusual podcast with your hosts, Eddie and Joe. Welcome, everyone. I am your host, Joe Pavlansky, pop culture historian, writer for Scary Monsters magazine, and curator of the Crypt of Classics. Co-hosting, as always, is the maestro of mail-order mysteries and owner of houseoftheunusual.com, the one, the only, the intrepid Eddie Guevara. Eddie, my man, how's it going? How was your Halloween?
I am doing super great, Joe. It was really pretty good, Joe. It was pretty good. The only thing I missed is in my place of work, sometimes I would give candy, and I would have the candy there to give to the kids, but not having any this year. They didn't want, because of the COVID thing, apparently, my candy was not there, and I was kind of upset because I was looking forward for eating at least 20-25 Snickers bar, honestly.
That's kind of a bummer. I was kind of bummed this year. I didn't have too many kids. Usually I get, about 50 or so, and I think maybe I had about 20-25 this year, and I had all the candy. I had, every year I do some comic books as well. Usually I'll give the kids a choice between comics and candy, and more times than not they like to choose the comic books. And this year I was giving out both because I didn't expect a lot of kids, and I was kind of right. I ended up with a lot of candy and a few comic books left over. So hopefully next year, everything will be cleared up, and the kids could get back to normal, get their spooky costumes on, and head out in search of the goods. So with that behind us now, I wanted to talk about, because it's always this time of year for some reason, I really start. I don't know if it's just because I'm inside and the weather's changing and things are, getting a little bit more spookier, during and after Halloween. But I want to talk a little bit about, remember the old magic kits that used to sell in comic books, or you could get as a kid? They'd come with a lot of cheap little items to play with.
Of course. How can I forget those?
I know those were awesome. I used to have one as a kid. I was never really that good with it, but for those who never really seen one or don't know where they're talking about, I found I got it here from a comic book. It looks like, I think it was from an Avengers comic, I believe in the 60s or 70s. I don't see a date on it, but there's a huge ad for it, for a bag of magic. And of course, this is everything's illustrated, then it has a picture of some of the magic tricks that were drawn on there, and then a face up in the corner. It kind of looks like Rasputin. I don't know why they would put that as like a magician or something, maybe to be mysterious. But this was put out by Fun Factory, and it was only $2. And in it, you get a bunch of magic tricks. I'll go over those, what came in it. And you get a free 201 Magic Tricks handbook with every order, for only $2. And this came out of Palisades Park, New Jersey. Is that anywhere near you?
Well, first of all, if you remember, that was my company. Of course, that's the one I took over, the Fun Factory.
Fun Factory. Well, there we go. Of course.
Yeah, that's the original. The one, I think, if I'm correct, it's 117. The address on that is 117 Union Street.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, in Palisades Park. And the reason it was kind of ironic is when I started with Lou Weiss in 1989 or 88, when we started the Fun Factory again, the address he had was also 117. I think the address we had was 117 Fort Lee Road.
Oh, really?
It was kind of funny because it had the same exact address, and Lou brought that up to my attention, and that was interesting, But here's let me give you a little history on those sets and how it works. The original company that actually started selling, not original, I mean, of course, in the 1950s and 60s and 70s, there was a variety of mail order companies, especially in comic books, that always ran those things. I think one of the leading one was the House of a Thousand Mysteries. The company was located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And right now, it's kind of interesting because I have a mental block on the name of the owner. But the House of a Thousand Mysteries was probably one of the most, or the of I'm thinking Flasso Hornman. Hornman Magic Shop was one of the original magic shops that, if you remember what David was talking about one time, he mentioned that it was owned by Houdini, and they were out of New York City. But the son, Jackie Hornman, was a very, very famous son of what they called the original. His father used to be called the Long Island magician, or the Coney Island magician. I don't remember the name because I'm just saying top of my head right now. And his son Jackie was very popular in comic books. He ran ads constantly, telling you, a free magic trick or whatever if you ordered the catalog. But the House of a Thousand Mysteries, which it's very interesting. I'm trying to remember this name, and I'm going to have to actually look it up and just find out, because it really throws me off that I can't remember his name, Let me see. Joe.
Yeah.
Just give me 1 second. I'm trying to look it up right now as I speak to you.
Okay, well, while you look that up, I'm going to let everyone know what you actually got in this bag of magic that was for $2. Like I said, you also get 201 magic tricks, but the little placard on here says you get a mysterious ball and vase, an all-time favorite, a baffling paddle, a surprise ending they'll never figure out, magic flying disc, put it down, it amazingly takes off, 2-card Monte, 1 card seems to disappear, an imp bottle, only you can command the mysterious bottle, and a surprise mystery trick, one of the best ever. So along with that, you get the handbook. It says the secrets to over 200 magic tricks and illusions explained, and many illustrations to go along with it, tricks that anyone can do. So it was a lot of it seems like simple tricks that you could get to get, if you're a young kid, to maybe, get you started and kind of learn, how the magic tricks are performed. I mean, you always have to, anything you do, you always have to have a good foundation and a good base to build upon. So I think a lot of these did that for kids.
Well, it did. Actually, it was kind of funny, though, because I guess because of all this election stuff going this week, my brain is a little fried from watching the television. But here is basically Vic Lawson, which I can't believe I actually forgot his name for a second. Vic Lawson was very popular. He originally started like in Monroe, Connecticut, and in the late 60s. And his company, his catalogs were all like hand drawn by him. I mean, this guy was fascinating. He did probably, I think, in fact, half, and I've said this before, the Fun Factory, which was my company, and American Circle Corp. I would even say Johnson Smith took a lot of the caricatures, the can't even pronounce the word now right now. The caricatures.
Caricatures. Yeah. If anybody out there in podcast land could pronounce it, just say it along with.
Right, exactly. They'll know. But the different things out there, and all the photos and a lot of the images you will find being duplicated by Abracadabra Magic Shop. You'll be, American Circle Corp, Fun Factory, and including myself, because obviously I took some of the images too. But anyway, Vic Lawson was fascinating in what he did with magic tricks, especially over there. So most of this company, from Flasso Hornman and all that, they would just take those images, and you would constantly see the same images over and over. And in this one with the Fun Factory, I believe that the kit that Lou used to sell at the time, or Lou Weiss, who was the owner at the time, was one made by S.S. Adams, which Dave Haversatt later became part owner. The original ads for like 101 magic tricks and all that stuff, all those books are S.S. Adams books, and they were basically sold across the board. Almost every magic company and novelty company sold the same exact item. Now, as magic became very popular, it kind of unified itself with the novelty joke and magic industry. So even though, like Dave said in one of the last podcasts we had with him, when he was talking about Houdini and stuff, and he mentioned how he remembers those magic catalogs being inflated like the comic book ads, where when you thought you get a trick, you really didn't get the trick you got. It would make obviously would they would inflate the ad so that when you thought you were going to get this thing that floats in air, you were going to cut a woman in half, whatever it was. But when you actually got the item, you're like, oh my gosh. But what happened is that I know Dave mentioned that there was really, but yes, there was in most magic catalogs, they would put in a couple of the magic and, novelties, like the joke novelties. Flasso
Right.
Hornman, was one of those that sold both jokes and books and most stuff magic. And one of the biggest, I think, sold plans on how to build props and illusions came from a guy named U.F. Grant. U.F. Grant, back in the day, he made a bunch of plans. And what a lot of these companies did is they copied them, photocopied them, stapled them on papers, and sold them individually, like for 50 cents, $1. One of them is actually going to be in our first newsletter, which is Walking Through a Solid Steel Wall. It was a phenomenal trick as a kid. I always wanted it. Actually did not order it. Then when I wanted it later on in life, I went through eBay, man. And the only way I was able to obtain it, which was ironic, was I was able to buy one book on magic. Cost me like $79 that had the trick and how to do it. Because, man, you could not find one book on this trick. This trick was like, how come they don't have it? It was such a popular item that you always saw, what do you call this, an Abracadabra Magic Shop sell it. So apparently I was able to get one of the original copies. So obviously I'm going to offer it with you, Joe, in the back of the Ghost Ship Times mini magazine we're putting out soon. So people will be able to get a copy of this phenomenal trick. Now, magic in my life started originally by watching television back in the 1970s. Early 70s. The most legendary magic thing on television was TV Magic. Now, the magician that made this whole thing famous and later became super rich on it was Marshall Brodie. Now, Marshall Brodie, when he used to have those commercials for the TV Magic set, you had the TV Magic cards, the TV Mystery cards, and this, especially around the Christmas season, they would go all over. You have them like in almost every commercial, every time. So I fell in love with that. But, the average Magic set would cost between $4.95 to $6.99 or maybe $10. And the deluxe was $20, which I had an unboxing of one not too long ago that I was not too happy to find out it wasn't complete. But I mean, bro, in 1970, $4.95 was kind of like, I would say, equivalent to $30, $40 today. It was a lot of money, And what
Absolutely.
kid had it? So, I would salivate every time I saw them on TV. I wanted the kits, but, mom wouldn't get it for me. She finally started getting them like on Christmas or... So I did get quite a few of those magic kits, and my favorite was the TV mystery cards. Now, the difference between the TV magic cards and the TV mystery cards is that in the beginning, when they started first giving those, they were selling them. The TV magic cards usually would have where you have an A or space, whatever, and then all the cards will turn into an A. Like the A cards, and then
Right.
or the ace, and then what they would do is the TV mystery card. You had a regular deck of cards, and all the cards were there, and then you took out the back one, and it was blank, and then both the front and back of it would be blank, and that was how the TV mystery cards started. My favorite, because I guess the name mystery was the TV mystery cards, and I probably had a few sets of them. Now, one Christmas, I think it was 1976, in Woolworth. Now, Woolworth, I'm sure you remember the old Woolworth. I mean, who doesn't remember Woolworth? In New York City, where I grew up in Washington Heights, there was this Woolworth that had two stories. Okay, when you went up to the second story, it was all toys. Along the aisle, the one year that I'll never forget, they were selling the Haunted Mansion board game. By I think it's, if I can remember, Lakeside made it. They were selling what they called the ghost gun, which was this. It looked like a machine gun, and it would project with a light these images of ghosts on the wall. Now, it was made by Hasbro. The ghost gun itself was kind of funny though, because they would have these lights of ghosts, that you would put in through the gun. So when you shot it, what it actually did, it had like a paper puncher, and you would see the image of the ghost through the light, which you're actually like projecting the light into the wall. And when you pull the trigger, you actually made a hole on the actual cellophane where the ghost was printed on. So it's not like you could keep using it forever and ever. Once you shot it,
Right.
it had a short lifespan. I think it had, if I remember, I don't know, like 10, 20 strips of different ghosts that you would put through, and you look up in the wall and you shoot it.
Now, do they sell any packs that you could buy
Yes, with the
extra?
instructions. Yeah, of course, with the instructions, like for $2 or $3, you can order another set of those slides. I still have my original ghost gun in the original box. To be honest with you, though, it's kind of a turnoff when you see the way it works, because you would figure, why would they do? But I mean, we're talking 1970s technology. There's no video games yet. Atari's has not even come out with the original Master System, they called. In fact, you had very early versions of those games that had the little beep beep, like the tennis games. I think I
Pong and
think at
all
that
that.
time, if I'm correct, they weren't even out yet. They came out more like, I think, 77, 78. But anyway, they had that. So in this 1 year, it was the Lakeside Haunted Mansion, it was the Ghost Gun, and it was the TV Magic Deluxe, the Master Magic set, they called it. And I requested all those for Christmas. Man, to this very day, it was probably the best Christmas I ever had, because I was able to get almost all the toys I wanted. Now, one of those toys that I also got that year were what they called the Knuckle Busters. They looked like the Rock'em Sock'em robots, but they were two powerful looking guys. And when you squeeze a bulb, the hand would pop out and punch the other one in the nose, and it would fall backwards. But the thing was, when you looked at the commercial on the TV, they were playing a record in the background where you're hearing like boom, 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 and they're doing it really quick. And when you see it in the commercial, it looks like the hands of the guys are punching the other guy. The way it really worked is, which was such a disappointment, was that when you squeeze the bulb, okay, the hand would come out like with air, and it would go. I mean, really cheesy product. It was well made, but it was a cheesy product that I honestly got to tell you, didn't play a lot with them, but I kept them, and I lost them actually in the fire, but they were like in mint condition. So
So nothing like
no,
the
no. When you saw that,
advertisement.
if you look up on YouTube for the original Knuckle Busters, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The way they went through that commercial was like, wow, man, I got to get this fighting guys. They're awesome, right? Now, the all-time favorite game I had as a kid that also I got that year, like my mom must have spent $200 in toys for me that year, was the famous Gunfight at OK Corral. Now, the way the Gunfight at OK Corral game was, it was a long rectangular game, I would say about maybe 3 feet long by 20 inches wide, and it would have on each side a cactus and a rock. You stuck it onto the board game, and it had a gun. So you had a handgun in both sides that would slide, and you put a character on top of each of the guns, and you would shoot at each other, and you would use the rock or the cactus to not get shot at. You can hide behind it, and you go for, you kept shooting at each other. The only problem with that game was that after you used it for a while, since it was not a really super hard plastic, but the BBs that they used in it were steel, like heavy steel balls, that eventually the gun inside the trigger mechanism would crack, and it wouldn't work after, say, you used it 30 or 40 times. It devastated me because it was my favorite game. I played it constantly. There was another game similar to that one called Tank Command, and you had 10 tanks, and the tanks would move forward. The same thing, a rectangular game. You had about 10 tanks on each side, and you moved them like one step at a time. And then you pulled the cord. Each side had a cord, and there were supposed to be mines underneath the tank. And if one of them landed over the mine, when you pulled it, the tank would fall off the. Another fantastic game. If you want to see what it looks like, I would suggest to anybody to go on YouTube and look up Tank Command. from the 1970s. I forgot who made it, but it was there. Now I didn't get that one that Christmas. I probably got it the following Christmas. But the point is that's when I started with magic. Getting back to the original conversation here with the magic sets, and I took that home, and that magic set I really put it to use. I started practicing, and before you knew it, I was able to perform all the tricks in the set. And I told the story a while back that one day my brother, he was a little guy around 4 or 5, I don't know what it is. He went under my bed, pulled out the set, and freaking demolished it, man. And I just got so mad, and I threw it out. So then I thought I had rebought the set, and here's the problem. Here's basically one of the problems about buying a set in good condition. Just like the Lakeside Haunted Mansion. Anytime you see on eBay the Lakeside Haunted Mansion, which I lost in the fire, by the way, I don't have mine anymore. I've tried to get a copy, not a copy, but get an original one. And it always sells for like $300-400. And what really gets me with it, though, is that the way they made the boxes, just like the TV Magic set is, they made the boxes so thin. It's think of it like this. Those gift boxes you buy in Christmas, they give you in the stores where you put sweaters in and you give them to your friends. The boxes were made like that, cheap. So anytime you see a Lakeside Haunted Mansion board game, the box is in horrible condition. And it's because it's so flimsy. The artwork was phenomenal, but the boxes were really, really bad. So the the TV Master Magic set, when I did get it, I paid like I think it was $130, between $120, $130 for it. And I kept it in its original sealed plastic black bag that the guy wrapped it in. When I did the unboxing on my YouTube channel, I was shocked to find out that it was all over the place in pretty bad condition, to be honest with you. I'm not proud of the set anymore. In fact, if I might even consider selling it like it is, because I would love to have one in mint condition, but I don't know if that's even possible due to the fact of how flimsy the box was. That people, if they did have one in mint condition, the box would probably be all warped and. So anyway, that's what got me into the magic. But I think what really pushed magic in the 1970s was all those kits that Marshall Brodeen had on television, and he became pretty popular and famous with it. Then I don't remember exactly the year, but like in the early 80s, there were some other companies that were selling magic sets on television late at night. I remember I was already married at the time, so I would say probably late 80s. I saw one that they would give you free a magic folding dollar. I was so fascinated with the self-folding dollar that I sent away for it. I got it and stuff. But you know what, though? Getting back, it was fun to get magic in mail order and order things from Johnson Smith, Honor House, because all of them sold magic stuff. The famous ones that you always saw were the Smoke from Fingertips, which S.S. Adams, to this day, I think that's one of their best all-time selling.
I've always wanted one of those just to see how they would work. That's such a cool trick.
It's really, think about it like this, so you get an idea of the way it works. The product itself is a gel, a gel that it's kind of like Vaseline. When you put this little bit of, a drop of gel between your fingers, it's really sticky. So think of Vaseline, but like glue in it or something. When you start really quickly going back and forth with your fingers, like, your thumb and your index finger, you start going down, opening and closing really fast on that gel, it creates what looks like smoke, but in reality are like really invisible strands of hair. Yeah, that's what the smoke is. But here's the funny thing about this product. And Dave has said that it's probably the best-selling product they ever had. I think they sold it to a company that could make about $200,000 a year with just that product alone. If you ever, now I could tell you this because growing up in Cuba, when I was very small in a farm, there was an old wives' tale that if it was thundering and you burnt the bull of a horn the horn of a cow or something. I mean of a bull, the thunder would go away. So my mom sometimes would take bull horns, that were laying around, and she put like a match to it to see if the thunder goes away. Well, the smell is horrendous, man. It's kind of like when you ever burn your
Oh, I can
hair, the
imagine.
smell you get from burnt hair. Well,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
that's the story of that famous smoke from fingertips. It stinks. In fact, when I was back in the 80s, when I opened up my magic shop and I went to meet up with the SS Adams Company way, way before David ever was part of it, the grandson and the father actually was there too. The son of the guy who owned the SS Adams and the grandson Chris were there, and they gave me and my store partner, because I had a partner in the magic shop I had, and they gave us a tour of the entire SS Adams Company, and we went where they were doing that. Man, the smell was it was not fun. I actually didn't want to finish the tour. I'm like, I'm good. I'll go to another floor.
One of what I used to love getting when I was young, probably back in the 80s, they used to sell them a lot at our little family owned drugstore, was the disappearing ink. And I remember the first time I got some of that, it came in a little tube that you could squirt out. I think it was a little tube or maybe a little pen with that you could squirt it. I
There
really
were
can't
different
remember, but I
versions. You
remember.
had both. You had the tube, not the tube. You had a bottle,
Okay,
and you had a pen.
you know what? I think it was the bottle. So I remember putting it on my carpet. We had a light carpet in the living room, and I remember putting it on there and pretending like my pen exploded or something and yelling for my mom. And I remember her coming in and just the look on her face. She's like, "Oh my God, what the heck happened?" And I had to convince her that it was disappearing ink and had to show the bottle. But I always loved that little magic kind of prankster novelty trick. That was one of my favorites, and I used to use it with friends. Squirt it on their
The,
shirt, and they would think their shirt was ruined or
it,
something, and
it's
then it would
it's
would
definitely
disappear.
a good trick. The only thing with it, it was kind of funny that you mentioned that, because like I said, the popular items that were sold were flowers from fingertips, smoke from fingertips, the floating zombie ball. Sometimes they would be popular, and the other one that was really popular was the from Loftus Magic, the haunted handkerchief. That was, always you could always see that one in the dancing silk or dancing handkerchief. You would always see those in the Johnson Smith catalog. That disappearing ink, the story I wanted to tell you about that you brought it up, is that I bought, I don't know, about 144 pieces when I had my magic shop, and I had left or half left about, I don't know, 36, 40 pieces of it. As time goes by, it disappears from the tube as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
So basically what happens is that if you take a tube that's 10, 20 years old, it's just clear liquid inside. The water doesn't disappear, the ink does. Yeah.
Oh,
And
really? That's pretty great. I wonder what that was. I don't think I've ever looked to see what that was actually made of that made it disappear.
they showed me how to make it. Like I knew the thing. I'm not going to really get in details of saying that online, because that's something that's one of the secrets of the trade. Just like how to make smoke from fingertips. It's something that
Yeah, and
you
I'm
don't,
sure if
right.
people
You don't
really
want, because
wanted, they could look
exactly,
it
not
up.
only that, because basically what happens with that is that if let's say me and you decide to sell it in the future, House of the Unusual or whatever, we could probably have our own supplies made. But the product itself were fascinating. The other one was a super that's caught a lot of people off, or they always sold you magic plants. One of those were the sparkling eyes. It told you that you would have this and your eyes would spark, and the more your eyes would flash with lights. And when you sent away for that, I think it was like 25 or 50 cents. What you got was a piece of paper with instructions on telling you to take two pieces of aluminum foil, to cut them down to less than a quarter inch, close your eyelid, and tape those aluminum foil or paste them with whatever onto your eyelids. And then what you do is you stand in front of a very bright light pointing to your face, and then you blink, and you blink really quick. So that's how the flashing eyes work. be honest with you, it was the worst thing ever.
Yeah, that's not. I would be afraid to cut my
Yeah,
eye
I
or
know. I didn't
I don't
really
think
think of
I'd
that as
want
a kid,
to.
but I just said when I got the instruction for that, I'm like, what? And that was sold by the Abracadabra Magic Shop, but they used to run full page ads all over, so people fell sucker for that. Now the other one also was this one item that I had one, and gosh, man, I don't know if I lost it in my fire or what, but I wish I could find it again. But it was called the Spook House. It showed a little ghost inside like a yellow house or white house, and it says you can't see him. I mean, I'm sorry, only you can see him, but nobody else can. So it's like a little card. The way that worked was you had a card, I don't know, about the size a little bit bigger than a deck of cards. I mean, the item itself was bigger, not than a deck, but one, let's say, a regular playing card. It was a little bigger. And what you would do is you fold it, and it had an A and B sections. That when you added the two corners together, you could see a ghost. It was kind of like if you look at early issues of Mad Magazine, the back cover always had one of those things that it would say to you, put A to B, and then you would fold the page, and it would create a whole different image in a hidden picture. And that's what that was. Now, it was a great item because the ad for it, just like again the 7 foot monster ghost, the way it's written is perfect. It's going to make a person want to have the product. But in reality, what you actually get, it's kind of disappointing. Uh, we're talking about the regular life of mail order back from the 70s. You always got, or you got less than what you anticipated for.
Oh yeah, I recall those. Seeing the magic when. Like I said, this was probably around 88, 89 or something when I had my first magic kit, and I remember seeing it in the catalogs, and I'm like, oh man, I could become a magician and I'll get to do all these cool tricks. And I remember getting I think we went to Hills department store when Hills was still around. For anyone that remembers Hills, and picking up the magic kit and just being so disappointed on how kind of cheap everything was, and how I thought I was going to be doing these cool magic tricks that like I seen magicians on TV do at the time, which real big was David Copperfield. I said, man, I'll be the next David Copperfield, and I could do all this stuff. And then I got this cheap plastic stuff, or some ropes, some plastic rings, and it's like, what the heck is this stuff, man? And I remember I kind of remember trying to do some of the tricks, but some of them I didn't have at the time, didn't have the patience to learn and to practice. But yeah, I do remember being kind of disappointed at the magic kit that I got. Now now looking back at some of these older magic kits, there were some that were really nice. And if anybody out there, go to houseoftheunusual.com on the forum site, I have a post that's called Magic Yesterday and Today, and on there I have some photos of vintage magic kits. And some of them you could tell are very cheap, just a lot of kind of paper products. You get some metal rings maybe, or some stuff with string, some cards, other plastic stuff. But you could really tell how the quality, when these kits first came out, there was some type of quality there, and there was a little bit of know-how. They gave you the books on how to do it, and then you could see kind of in the started in the 80s and 90s how the kits kind of shifted to more just like plastic,
Yeah, very cheaply
cheap
done.
plastic
Very
stuff.
cheaply done.
Yeah, but I mean, some of those older kits, and I know back in like the teens and the 20s and 30s, going back then, some of them came in wooden boxes, and then they transferred into cardboard boxes, nice thick ones, and then eventually thinner cardboard that kind of broke away and didn't last throughout the years. But if you could get your hands on some of those vintage ones, man, they're very cool. I mean, and the artwork on the outside of them is very nice too, to even just to collect, to have up on your shelf and everything. But as they when Fisher Price started putting theirs out and all that in the 80s and 90s, they got very cheap, and to me just didn't seem worth it. But you got to wonder how many of these kits actually, like I said, gave a base foundation for some of these more famous magicians,
Well,
today that actually started off with these cheap little kits, and now they're making millions with these, very elaborate
You
illusions.
know, I got to be honest with you, Joe. When you said that, I think some of the best packaged and best made kits were the TV Magic sets, and I'll tell you why. The material in them, even the plastic, were kind of heavy duty. They were not cheap. Right after the dawn or the age of the TV Magic sets, the sets that were out there, and I'll tell you for a good example, I had, or and I still have, an original FAO Schwartz Magic set, the Disguise set, and I also have the Magic Trick set. Here's the killer on this. The box for being FAO Schwartz, which would be, I mean, this kid went for like 50, 100, I don't know how much it went for. It's a cheap box, man. It's a solid color. It's really not something you like, oh, I got to get this. Yeah,
Really, usually FAO Shorts has some, real thick
no,
boxes and
it's
usually well
not at all. In
packaged.
fact, I'm going to send you
Wow.
photos of mine. It's very disappointing. And I have one of the originals from the 60s. Um, the kits that I think had the best artwork and were most desirable are the TV Magic sets because they really look cool. I mean, I do own today about, I don't know, 7 or 8 of them, and they're really nice. And if you look at my unboxing, you'll see like the one called the Master, not the Master, the big, huge one, but I show a smaller version, which is really cool. It came for like 10 tricks. I think it was $10, $9.99, but the artwork on it was phenomenal. Now, one of the best kits, and I wish Dave was on tonight, that he would be able to elaborate a lot more on this magic stuff because I can only elaborate on the ones I remember and the ones I was part of, the ones I bought. But there were some that I never even saw as a kid that had this gorgeous, phenomenal artwork. One of those, I actually saw it in American Pickers. They purchased one, and it was by a famous magician called John Calvert. Now, John Calvert, the thing about this is I believe he lived not too far from David. David knew him very well. And this guy was, a magician, whatever. He passed away recently. But when I saw the magic set, it really drew my attention. It's like a red box. It has his image on it, and it was signed by him. And they were asking, I don't know, like $200. I think I did a best offer like 120, and he took it, and I purchased the set signed by him. Not him, but whoever was selling the set. But I did it because I saw it in American Pickers, and I knew that, hey, I really like that set. But I got to tell you something, though. With all the magic sets that I have reviewed, and I own, because I own quite a few of them. I wouldn't be surprised I own over 30 or 40 of them, including those early magic sets that you have in the website that you put up. I think I
Yeah.
have almost all of them except for maybe one that you showed there. I was thinking where I had them, where, because I mean the artwork is really cool and stuff, but the John Cal hold on a second. I'm just actually looking at the trying to see if I have a photo here of what's in.
Well, I tell you what's one that I would really like that I keep eyeballing a lot and looking for a decent price one, but it's from I believe the 20s, and it's a Gilbert Misto magic, and it comes in a red wooden
Yeah,
box.
I got that for $79. I don't know.
Well, that's not a bad price. Because I've seen some of them going upwards as much as
Oh
three
yeah,
hundred
sure,
dollars
of
for.
course. But I got mine a long time ago though. We're talking, Joe. I got mine probably, I don't know, 2003 to. I mean, it was the early days of eBay, and people were
Yeah,
just selling it, and I got it for like 79. I thought I was saying to myself, man, that's a lot. There was also another wooden magic set that I bought that I forgot what company made it, but you know what? Like I said, the best artwork, yes, Gilbert Magic set was really nice. They do have nice, but in the John Calvert, he doesn't have much inside. I think he has, let me see, like 4 or 5, 6 tricks inside the magic set. But you know what? It gives it a professional look. And I believe David told me that this magic sets were given by him for people that attended his show, like the people that pay for the tickets and stuff. At the door,
yeah,
they were given like the first 100 attendants or something like that were given this magic set. I bought it because, and the reason I bought it is because I was talking to David that I said, Dave, there's never been a professional magic set. And when I'm saying professional, I'm talking about doing a magic set for professional starting magicians or professional magicians that have tricks unlike anything that's ever been done, unique to only that set, but to offer stuff in there made of steel, made of, wood, like professional equipment, and put it into like a good attache case, like one of those James Bond looking cases.
Yeah.
You
Oh
know,
yeah.
um, Phantasma Magic, which is found in New York City, not too far from 34th Street. You get a lot of Phantasma Magic in, well, not Toys R Us here, because now Toys R Us, which is ironic, I couldn't believe Toys R Us still exists up in Canada. But you see them in Target and stuff like that, and Walmart. Phantasma Magic, a couple of years ago, I went to New York and I visited their magic shop. And when I went into their magic shop on the second floor, they had like a little magic show, which I was really fascinated by. The guy had a good setup there, and he had a steel briefcase, and the steel briefcase had the magic set inside. I think it was $140 or something like that for it. To be honest with you, I kind of regret I didn't buy it. It had like about, I don't know, 150 tricks in it that you could do whatever, but the briefcase itself was part of the magic set where you can use it to perform magic with it. Um, I think that was a phenomenal idea. I really think that Phantasma Magic hit it good in doing their magic sets, where I think they kind of fail or fall short in when you buy the ones in Target and stuff, is that most of their stuff is made of cardboard. So when you have, let's say, your arm goes through, like cut your arm in half or whatever it is, the thing you put, the apparatus you put around your arm is made of cardboard, and it's cheap. It's a little cheesy, It's not as professional as it could be. So I think when I went there 4 or 5 years ago, he had really professional magic sets that later went to the cheap side. So I had told
Right.
David it would be fantastic, phenomenal to do a magic set that you can charge $500, $600, $700 for if it's really professional magic in it. And that's still in the back of my mind. I haven't decided not to do that. And one of the people that was actually going to help me push that um, was the NBA player Mason Plumlee, which I'm still in back of my mind going to use for that, because I was going to call it Magic Masons, and he was all for it. And, like I said, one thing at a time, we're now starting this new podcast and stuff. I don't want to go into different avenues, but it's definitely something that it's down the pike. It's going to take place, just a matter of when. Okay.
Right.
But you know what? Again, magic and novelty tricks, magic tricks, the 7-foot ghost, 7-foot monster, they were all in the same bag. If you like any of them, you're going to go back to the same mail order genre from the time of the 70s, because there's not a novelty catalog that doesn't have magic tricks and jokes in it. And when you do have the professional magic catalogs, like from Supreme Magic, from England, you have the different magic companies, Abbott Magic Shop, and there was especially in New York City, on Times Square back at the time, they had at least 3 magic shops in New York City. They all
You know
will
what
still have
really,
novelties in it. Go ahead.
what really sucks is where I'm from, Northeast Ohio, is that I don't ever remember a magic shop, seeing a magic shop or hearing about a magic shop in my area. Now, maybe Pittsburgh, which is about 45 minutes from me, or Cleveland, an hour and a half, might have had some magic shops. I'm guessing they may have, because they're, larger cities, and possibly Columbus. That's about, 3.5 hours or so. But I don't, down in the Youngstown area in Northeast Ohio, I don't ever remember hearing about a magic shop, which that would have been really cool, growing up to been able to go to one. But, you know, that's something, kind of like newer to me that I'm, kind of delving into, just to, I really like seeing these old pictures of magic shops and how they were set up and what the insides look like. They're really interesting.
The best magic sets were located, I mean, best magic shops were located in New York City. I mean, the thing that was crazy though, back in the 1970s, say for example, I went to this famous magic shop that was right there on 42nd Street in Times Square, right across the street from the building where they break that ball each year. And
Right.
I bought a Franco-American novelty. It was the manufacturer for it, electric shocking book. Now, the Johnson Smith catalog has a phenomenal ad for that book. Man, when I was a kid, I really wanted it because it shows this guy opening it up, and man, sparks are coming out of his ears, his eyes, So again, the picture tells the story, and the picture sells the item. Not what the wording says, what the picture does, right? So it sold me on the picture. And in fact, I have copies that I used to sell an early catalog for the Fun Factory and actually House of the Unusual as well. And it has in the front page that ad from the guy getting all this electric bolts coming out of him. That book cost me at the time. This is crazy, which I'm kind of surprised that my mom got it. Almost $22, man. And,
oh, wow.
And here's the problem that some of those early magic things, like the book itself, phenomenal. Great looking item, right? Beautiful. The case was nice. The book kind of looked, to be honest with you, like it was made out of metal. So a person looking at the book would say, what the hell is that? Because the fake pages around it were pages drawn on cardboard. So you could tell it's kind of like a fake book. You know it's not a real book, right? So they had the electric shocking lighter and the electric shocking pen. And they all went, even in the Johnson Smith catalog, went for about $15, $20 a piece. So it was forbidden for a little guy to buy it. You know what I'm saying? You just didn't have that kind of money, man. The Polaris nuclear submarine was $6.99, and who the hell can afford that? So.
And what year was that the Polaris sub that was advertised? Not to put you on the spot.
No. Yes, I do have the original sub. In fact, I'm probably the only one that has the only one that's.
Wait, what year were those advertised around?
Well, originally Honor House started advertising in the early 1950s the rocket ship. Okay, they had a rocket ship, and then in middle 60s, like 64, 65, they started selling a tank, a Sherman tank. Then it morphed into the Polaris nuclear sub, which went from 1966, I think, to about 1985. Not 85, absolutely not. I would say to 1980, 81. By 83, it was gone from comic.
And you figure the comic books, even at that time, were anywhere from 12 to 25 cents. And that sub was what, almost $7. That's a huge amount.
It was a lot
for that time.
But the problem with the original submarine and stuff is that when you built it, it had these rivets inside that when you put it in, it's like you can't remove them. You put this thing in through the plastic, then the other side has a rivet. You push it in, and it's kind of like the twist ties. It's a one-way thing. That's it. The only way, and now when you put this thing, which is 7 feet long, and like 2 or 3 feet wide, there's no place in your house to keep it. So if you keep it in the basement, it's cardboard. It's going to disintegrate. That's why mine's is probably the only one left in the world. Now, mine is from 1966, which it's ironic that no one ever built it. You know what I'm saying? They must have just had it disappear. But here's the whole thing, though. The items of that time that just didn't last, from the submarine to the 7-foot Ghost, they were all items that were not only seen in every comic book, not every comic book, but I would say 60% of the comic books, and kids would just salivate looking at those ads, wanting them. And I think the best movie out there that they made that kind of brings people back to that era is Creepshow. When Billy gets his comic book and he wants to order the Venus flytrap. And the funny thing about the Venus flytrap is they call it man-eating plant, or flesh-eating plant, which is, it doesn't do at all. And I found that funny because you always thought you can feed it meat, and you're not supposed to feed it. They tell you to feed hamburgers to it, but in reality, it's supposed to be only insects.
The ad that I was talking about earlier in the podcast here about the bag of magic. On the bottom, there's a small Venus flytrap, and it's labeled as flesh-eating plants. The most unusual plant in the world. Eats flies, bugs, insects, even meat. Instructions and special soil included. And it shows a picture, an illustration, drawn illustration of the plant with, somebody putting their finger in it and the plant snapping at the finger. So I thought that was pretty funny, because if anyone's ever seen a Venus flytrap or had, a real one, that's, it's nowhere near that.
Well, I thought, this is a funny thing that you said that. I thought when I first sent away for it, I thought that when it came, it would snap on your fingers. In fact, I was a little afraid of it because I thought it was like alive and stuff. I didn't realize, wait a minute, it doesn't work quite that way. But you know something though, when I took over the Fun Factory with Lou, I was able to there was a nursery that sold like one of those plant nurseries, and I found a Venus flytrap there, and I bought it. It was like 3-4 inches, beautiful plant, right? And I was able to call the company that made it, that was located, I think, in Massachusetts. I forget the name exactly, but it's one of those nurseries that would sell to the different companies. And I remember the minimum order was 48 pieces. So I would have to when I ran the ad in comic book with Lou, I waited till I got 48 orders, and then I ordered the 48 pieces, got them within 7 days, and I ship them out to the people. But what I did is I used those 8-inch square boxes from the USPS that are, priority mail. And I would put the plant in there. And since the plant had, it was like 2 cups, like, 2 drinking cups. And it had one on top, like acting as a greenhouse over the plant. And it was well sealed. Okay. So I would send it. And believe it or not, I never had a problem with at least 200-300 plants I sent away in the mail. Everybody was happy with it. They got instead, because back in the 70s, they would send you a seed. And when you planted it, it never, ever worked. It was like a piece of junk. So the original mail order ads for that, when they send you the root that you're supposed to plant and stuff, no matter what, it just does not work. But that's part of the time, the time they would allow you, and there was no feedback you could give the company. So you kind of kept screwing the same kits over and over and over, and there was no way of policing who was.
You say, I'll just move on to something else. It'll be better. And then you get that, be disappointed and say, I'm going to move on to something else. And, just the vicious cycle, keeps going and going.
You know what? It's kind of like when we were talking about the magic sets that you said, to some of the early magic sets. If you go to the 70s, the magic sets had really cool artwork. But when you start going into the 40s and 30s, their artwork was kind of like those old magician posters, which look like the posters you get in those freak shows. And, it kind of is, for me, it doesn't really do a lot, because I like the magician where you got the guy with the eyes looking through the box and the mystery behind it. I like that monster cover. I don't like that old-fashioned, doll, like paper doll cover.
See, I'm the opposite. I like the old ones, and especially the like I was saying, that Misto Magic, where they got pictures of little demons and devils on it, like this magic is like some otherworldly power. I like seeing that. I don't know, it just adds kind of like some mystery to it, rather than seeing just a magician doing some tricks. I've always enjoyed those old posters of magicians where they would have like these demons or devils, or these
they always did that. They always did that.
Clouds of smoke, and it made you think, was of course we know better now, but at the time I could just put myself in that time frame and say, man, is this some otherworldly power that this guy has, or does he know some esoteric or occult tradition that he's showing us? I always thought those were cool.
That's why. Yeah, but I understand what you're saying. What I was saying really quick, because we only have a few seconds to go, is that, Joe, the problem that had was that it made magic, especially for normal kids that wanted a magic set, it put them in the realm of the unknown, the New
Oh
Age,
yeah, yeah, I could definitely
devil,
see
you
that.
know, devil worship stuff. So it gave magic a bad name because, so in a sense, I understand what you're saying. I do understand that. But at the same time, some of those posters, because of those images, cause people not to like magic and be
Oh yeah,
afraid of it
I could
because
absolutely see that.
they construed it that it was black
Yeah.
magic. When in reality, so when I was growing up, I was one of those kids that my mom never wanted me to have magic sets because of images that were just, a little bit too crazy. Now, what you do, so I kind of, I'm totally the opposite when it comes. I do understand what you're saying in that I kind of strayed away from those images, especially when I do create magic sets and stuff, is because of the fact that people don't want to buy it because they're saying that I'm selling, devil worshiping
Right.
stuff. And
Yeah.
so I kind of stand the fact I'm a Christian too. I believe in Jesus there. I'm not going to go into that demon stuff. But I do understand what you're saying, that that's the way they portray the images. And that's why there's a quick change. If you look at the history, when it was past the 40s and 50s, that changed. The whole image, then they would always have a guy, especially like an Indian looking guy with the what they call fakers or faker. I forgot the name exactly how to pronounce it, but they had like the thing over their head with the one eye, the guy that
Oh
knows
yeah,
all, and
yeah. See,
Houdini
I love those.
with the
I love those
monsters.
posters.
Yeah, the posters you're talking about, they have the demons, usually like Dante the
Yep. Yeah.
magician, and those. Yeah, they had those, and but they'll go back to the late. You see, the fact in the early 1900s there was a big spiritualist movement in this country and worldwide where everybody wanted to talk to the dead and stuff. So, you know what, maybe Joe, you got to get a time machine, go back to that era. You might be more
I'm
up on
telling you,
that.
I think I'm an old soul, and that's when I was,
Um,
a previous life, I kind of lived in that era. But well, we're gonna wrap it up here real quick, and so we're talking about magic, and I'm sure on a future podcast we'll talk more about some magic once we get Dave Harvestat on, and maybe we'll ask him about some of these vintage magic kits and
oh, he
everything. So I'm sure he could.
he will be able. Yeah, he will be able
Yeah,
to
he's
really
the
make
man
the
that
show good.
will be able to put
Uh huh.
more information. So everyone out there listening, don't fret. We'll have more on these magic kits, and we'll dig, real deep into the history and some of the kits. But in the meantime, to hold you over, head over to houseoftheunusual.com. Join our site. It's free. You could interact in the forum. Check out the article Magic Yesterday and Today, and if you have some of your own kits or your own memories, drop a comment down there and the like. You could also find this on YouTube, House of the Unusual. There's Eddie does a ton of different videos on there, unboxing of some vintage novelties, some cool stuff. You'll see some magic kits on there, and then check him out on Instagram under House of the Unusual, and just come and interact with us, and meet some like-minded people, and come and have a good time. So, um, thanks everybody for stopping by. Eddie, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, but my final words, really quick. I haven't uploaded videos in the last week or two because I'm actually redoing my whole thing all over. And when I do an unboxing, I'm going to dedicate a couple of minutes into each product and tell you the history of the product. So I think when you start looking at the new videos, people will find them really fascinating. I'm really working in the whole thing. So, having said that, Joe, listen, have a beautiful night.
All
Take
right, Eddie,
care.
thanks for
And
yep,
until
thanks for
next week.
stopping by. Everybody, thanks for stopping by. Have a good night.